Hey friends, it's Mercury retrograde time again. Can you believe it? So stop everything and hide out in your bedroom for the next 3 weeks. Totally kidding. Let's talk about what this Mercury retrograde in Libra might have in store and how the teachings of a very influential astrologer could have us reframe our understanding of this often maligned cycle. Mercury stationed retrograde at 25 degrees Libra on September 26th. This means that Mercury appeared to stop at that degree in the sky and will now begin to look as if it's moving backward from our point of view. Mercury remains retrograde until October 18th when it stations direct, which means from our perspective, again, it looks like it stops on that day, and from that moment on, it begins moving forward. The direct station is at 10 degrees Libra, so if you've got planets between 8 and 27 degrees of Libra, this particular Mercury retrograde cycle might be a really important one for you. The start of this retrograde period has Mercury square Pluto in Capricorn, opposing the Kuiper belt object Eris, and trine Jupiter. So we start the cycle with the potential for some rather intense shenanigans or an awareness of power dynamics along with some disruptive potential, all in the zone of communication and information gathering or dissemination. Mercury in Libra might be vocal about issues of fairness or equality, or just making us aware of the other person's point of view, whatever that is. But it looks like on this particular day, it's trying to stand up to powerful or disruptive forces that might not care one bit. Forces that could be too entrenched to impact, or that could feel outside our control to influence. So we may be asked to tap into our best resources for diplomatic communication or negotiation on those days, and then just surrender attachment to the outcome. A lot of folks have worry and stress over Mercury retrograde because there's been a lot of hype about it. And not all of the info about Mercury retrograde online is really on point. One mistake I see people make is to say things like, don't start a new business under Mercury retrograde, or don't do anything while Mercury's retrograde. That's why I was making that joke at the beginning. The mistake here is one of rulership and correlation. In astrology, we assign certain life experiences and energies to certain planets, and Mercury doesn't relate to everything. It specifically has to do with communication and information and a few other things. It's the areas that have to do with Mercury that are impacted by its retrograde. Starting a business involves Mercury to some extent. There's paperwork to do and important conversations, but it's only those pieces that are going to be colored by Mercury's retrograde and not the others, which are going to involve some of the other planets too. I don't advise my clients to avoid all important actions during Mercury retrograde. Instead, I advise them to be aware of the energy and to work with it accordingly. Could be a good time to double and triple check documents for mistakes or omissions for sure, and to verify that when you're communicating, everybody's being properly heard. But with those precautions taken, it's okay to move forward with things that you have to do during this time. Now, if you're able to delay an important action, you could do that out of an abundance of caution, but we don't always have that luxury with important actions. So if you have to sign documents or make an important transaction during this time period, don't stress. Just check and double check your work. Ask as many questions as you need to, even if you're totally annoying the other person, and ask to make sure that the person you're speaking with really heard what you said, and vice versa. Well, with that out of the way, I want to tell you about some insights from iconic astrologer Dane Rudhyar that can help us reframe Mercury retrograde with a template for how to not only participate in this energy, but also enjoy it. As Mercury stations retrograde, it marks the beginning of the end of a cycle if we consider its relationship to the Sun. This Sun-Mercury cycle begins with an alignment that we call the inferior conjunction, and that takes place right in the middle of the retrograde. I'll tell you more about that in next week's video. With Rudhyar's model, we can reflect on the relationships between any two planets as descriptive of a moment within a larger cycle. And when we do that, we get a sense of the quality of time, which is one of astrology's best gifts. In this context, we can understand Mercury retrograde mishaps in a new light. Because as Mercury's cycle with the Sun comes to a close as it approaches retrograde, it's the perfect time to wrap up thought processes that we've been engrossed in, or even to release our attachment to those ideas as we prepare our mental space for something new. Because that's what's coming soon after the inferior conjunction. The communication breakdowns or slowdowns or setbacks with Mercury-related activities like short-distance travel, email, or paperwork shuffling start to make sense in this light because the energy of this time has the quality of breaking down, releasing, or ending. If we go with this flow instead of resisting it, we can experience letting go and release as a beneficial experience, or at least a necessary one. It's only when we try to forge ahead with plans that are unraveling in front of us or push against the grain of the natural slowing down flow that we meet frustration. Ideally, you've been aware of the whole Sun-Mercury cycle that started about 3 months ago, And at this stage, you may have a clear sense of the thoughts that emerged during or shortly after the last inferior conjunction, and you've been really working with those. Maybe you followed a line of thought to its fullness and you tried out some new ideas or fresh approaches, and then found out which ideas were intriguing and which weren't really viable. Then you may have gone through a natural sorting and analyzing process, putting some ideas into form or into action, and then letting others go when they didn't work out. Now, as Mercury stations retrograde, you get to review that full arc, that full mental process or storyline. Rudhyar advises us to shift our energy during this time from clinging to the past to willingly surrendering to the current process and choosing intentionally to let go of attachments to those ideas you might be stuck on but just aren't working out for one reason or another. If we play along with this process, we're helping to set the stage for the next mental journey that's about to begin. In this particular cycle, the turning point moment is on October 9th at the inferior conjunction. So for now, allow yourself to slow down. Sort through your mail, your email, take care of loose ends, and add some padding to your daily schedule so that if things take longer than usual or the person you need to talk with isn't available, you've got some flexibility built in. If we cling too much in those places where we're being asked to let go, we can become reactionary, or we could resist the natural movement that's trying to happen, a movement that calls for some patience with ourselves and with others as we surrender to what is rather than trying to force an agenda that's just not wanting to happen. This is a wonderful time for reflection and re-examination of the last 3 months to ask, what's worth keeping? What do I really think? What's no longer relevant, and what can I let go of? What might I want to bring forward into a new cycle of thought or exploration? After October 9th, you'll start to light up with some new thoughts and new directions to consider, but those emerge with a bit more fertility if you prepare the ground now in the ways I've just described. Getting in sync with this cycle of Mercury can not only be fulfilling and insightful, but it can also reduce stress as you allow yourself to go with the flow rather than resist the energy at hand. Some additional key dates to watch out for over the next couple of weeks include October 3rd, when Mercury applies to trine Jupiter. This air trine would be wonderful for communications that tie up loose ends, or it could be used to share well-developed insights that have emerged out of a careful process of analysis and reflection over the last 6 weeks or so. Then on October 4th, Mercury forms a QUINCUNX to Neptune. This could be a day that could signal some more classic Mercury retrograde technical snafus that could frustrate you, and they may not make any sense, or they might be hard to get to the bottom of, like a piece of software that just starts glitching out for no apparent reason. The best approach on that day could be to step back from what you're doing if possible and try to sort it out a couple of days later when the energy shifts. It's possible the issue could just go away as mysteriously as it came on, or at least that you'll have a better chance at figuring out the root cause then. On October 9th, we get that important turning point in the cycle, and I'll talk about that in next week's video along with some other key dates. Until then, slow down if you can and spend a little time each day thinking and integrating, and maybe talk with others as a way to clear out some mental clutter and make some headspace for the new Mercury cycle that's about to start. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's Astro Report. I'd love it if you could take a sec to hit the like button for me. That'll really help me get the word out about this video series. Stop by astrologyuniversity.com for your astro knowledge fix. If you want to take a deeper dive into Mercury and you've been studying astrology for a bit, you might enjoy my webinar on Mercury's phases, which includes a full teaching on some of the concepts that inform my message today. I'll include that link in the description. Well, thanks for tuning in, and until next time, take good care.